Okay, and I will get us underway. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Telford Agile Meetup. My name is Terence Darling. I'm here with my co-host, Prem. Prem, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, I am Premlata Balan.
And tonight we've got two speakers for you. You'll be glad to hear. Dr. Nick Fine, he's going to give us a quick talk about persuasion. On the screen it says book review, but it's actually a presentation about persuasion. And then we've got improving agility using customers' definition of quality, and done by Debbie Levitt. And then there'll be an opportunity to do Q&A afterwards. And then we'll go through about what's next, coming up, and wrap up. So I will hand over to Dr. Nick Fine if he's ready.
Yeah, thank you very much, Terence. Hello, everybody. As Terence has said, there's a minor change to the schedule programming. I'm going to give you a talk that I gave last year or the year before at the Behavior and Design Conference in London. It's all about persuasion, and there's a large section in here about Robert Cialdini's book, Persuasion, which is what you're expecting to hear. So if you're interested in persuasion in any form, and I think everybody is, because it's personally relevant, it's professionally relevant. So that's what I'm going to get into today and give you a whole bunch of really kind of a mini toolkit of persuasion. Now, I'm going to share my screen to you. There we go. Let's drag this thing out of the way. Right. All good? Can you guys all see that?
Yes.
Wonderful. So I'll begin. So like I said, this was originally from 2001, I think, 2020 maybe. Hang on, sorry. Right. Hang on. Sorry, I just got to get rid of all the Zoom clutter on my screen without a cursor, which is not easy. I'm sorry, guys. Hang on a second. Okay.
So it's all fine. It happens to us all, Nick.
Yeah,
it pops up and you
and it obscures all the controls.
Yes.
It's like it's a simple UX
everything that you want to click on.
Okay. Let me just try that again. Get rid of this rubbish. Right, there we go. And let's play. Oh, that'll do. Okay, so today we're going to learn how you can. I'm going to have to just live with these things on my screen. It's the fact that it loses the cursor makes it so hard. So today we're going to learn about how you can influence behavior using some basic persuasive design principles. Now, so a couple of caveats here. Okay, so first of all, this is not about mind control. Okay, lots of people assume that when we're talking about persuasion and persuasive techniques, we're talking about mind control, and we're absolutely not. And this isn't some form of hypnosis or anything like that. And it's not a remote control for human beings. Okay, let's just get that right out in the open. The ways to make someone do something they really don't want to do are usually unethical, immoral, and illegal. Now, I know in today's modern world, nobody really cares about that stuff, but I do, and so should you. It's really hard to persuade somebody to do something they don't want to do, in effect. Now, I'm just referencing Harry Brignall's work here. Harry Brignall is a UX has been around for 15 odd years, as long as the practice has been. Darkpatterns.org is his repository of all really bad behavior in interaction design or UX. It's a very interesting, good way to do it, but that's exactly, this is negative persuasion is what I'm showing you. It's interesting to review, have a look at it. So what we can talk about here, the timings are definitely going to be a bit more loose to kind of fit in with the half an hour that we've got here. I'm going to go straight into what you're expecting to see, classic persuasion, Robert Cialdini's book. But then I'm going to go into some other persuasion principles and some other authors. Then we'll go into design. I can't even read my own slides at the minute because I can't see them. We're going to go into some persuasive design, whatever that word is down there. This is a nightmare. I'm sorry, guys. This is so hard to present. So there is no magic playbook of persuasion that will definitely work on your project and brand. And anybody who's out there who's telling you that is frankly lying to you. There's lots of people who will tell you how to influence behavior, how to get more things. That magic playbook doesn't exist. In conjunction with things like agility that Debbie's going to talk about afterwards, it's that iterative process that gets you to understand how to persuade your audience. However, there are most definitely principles and methods which you can apply to your projects to add personalization, to add persuasive elements. Oh God, I mean, it's going to be such a problem with slides that, let's see if I can do that. How do I hide? Ah, here we go, hide video planning. Hang on one second, I need to get rid of this stuff, hang on. Brilliant, okay, sorry. Service has been returned to normal. So the next half an hour, I'm going to show you these principles and methods and a critical review of some very badly applied persuasion practices. So persuasion, if you think of it in terms of principles, the Cialdini stuff, Hahnemann, others, the methods and the processes, that's what effectively combine to create a persuasive effect. So in principles, you might be leveraging social proof, which is one of those Cialdini principles coming up. Methods, testimonials and reviews. Process, which is, iterative hypothesis testing, which is effectively agility or agile. So let's talk about principles, because this is really what you're here to see today. And this is what I think the blood and guts of it we need to get into. So Robert Cialdini, Dr. Robert Cialdini, this is a legendary book in 1984. It's still very relevant today as it was then. It's an absolute cornerstone psychology book. You definitely should buy it. You definitely should read it. It's not a difficult read. It's very accessible. You don't need to be an academic. It's not written in an academic style. It's not in a journal style. You see, it's in a novel book style, chapters, very, very easy to read. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the 6 or 7 principles here. I will talk to them right now, though, and go into some of them in great depth. Somebody's got, could you all go on mute, please? Thank you. So these are the 6 classic persuasion principles. Now, you should recognize many of these because they've been really flogged to death. Scarcity, right? If there isn't as much of a thing, I want it more. In a nutshell, it's FOMO, fear of missing out. Reciprocity is giving to get. So if I give you something, you're going to feel some kind of compulsion to give me something back. Social proof is exactly as it sounds. It's getting those evidences from your audience, from your network, from your peers, or just from the wider world. Authority, authority carries an awful lot of persuasive weight in the right conditions, because if somebody holds an authoritative position, you may or may not be more likely to be persuaded by their argument or instruction. Liking. I'm going to talk about this a bit more. Similarity attraction. We tend to like people. And sorry, can somebody please mute yourselves, because I keep muting myself. Thank you. Liking. So again, when you like things and other people like them, you're again triggering things like social proofs, the similarity attraction, which I'm going to talk to in a moment. And again, consistency. Consistency of output is also very persuasive, which is why you end up getting things like mail shots consistently sent to you regularly, because they're trying to establish some kind of persuasive foothold in your mind, in your workflow. Now, those should be pretty obvious. I hope they're familiar in that in your daily interactions with all digital stuff, you should be seeing these things. You may not have sensed them overtly, but they are absolutely going on. Now, let's go into scarcity. I'm just going to give you some examples, because you will have seen these. If you haven't seen them, it's only because you haven't recognized them, because they are literally ubiquitous. It's the marketeer's go-to tool these days. So here's an example. This is, it doesn't matter, it's a keychain, right? But you can see in the red box, it says, hurry, only 9 left in stock. Now, as I was taking the screenshot for this, look what happens. Keep an eye on only 9 left in stock. Oh, look, whilst I was doing this, somebody bought one. But whilst I was doing it, lots of people were buying them. Now, that's possibly very real and very valid, being the scientist and inherent cynic, that's almost certainly, when I say flash, that's almost certainly some kind of animation. That's not real. At least I don't think it is. The point is you can see at its most basic level that only 4 left in stock. I probably want to buy one. Their whole thinking is if you can see it decreasing, other people are buying them, that scarcity is getting sharper by the second, you should probably add it to your cart. As I'm going to come on to mention this in a little while, there is an awful lot of fatigue of this stuff going on because people are becoming very distrustful because people have cried wolf way too many times with this sort of shenanigan. Here is Lego. I got advertised this. I've got a young Lego addicted 9-year-old. See if you qualify. Now, how's that interesting? They've paid to promote, but they're saying, well, hang on, we're not definitely going to sell it to you. We're going to see if you're actually eligible. Do you qualify to become a member of this Booster Bricks Club? So only 100 applications are approved per day. Can you imagine a business that says, I'm sorry, sir or madam, we've already got 100 new Lego kids. Little Johnny's going to have to wait till tomorrow. I can't see that. Maybe that is the case. I just don't think in the modern commerce world that that's particularly valid. However, the effect that it has nonetheless is very strong. You know that that's probably not true, but yet you feel the pull anyway. How much is you? I like that. It gives it a level of authenticity because it's stepping on Lego every day. Number one, they're using like a colloquial everyday lingo, but stepping on Lego is one of those literal pain points that kids and parents have. It's authentic. These are actual people using and living with Lego because trading on Lego is a real thing. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to pop through some of this. I'm going to pop through a number of these slides just because there's a lot of slides and I've got limited time here. Now, still on the Lego boosters, let's look at the scarcity principle applied here. So I've applied, I've filled in a form. I'm an excellent fit. It says, nice job, Kibo Sabe. Now, arguably that's racist. So I don't know about that, but saying nice job and then trying to appeal to somebody on first name terms. And by the way, they had captured my first name. They should have used my first name. That is a much stronger persuasive technique. But then can you see they've also got only 28 memberships remain today. So they're carrying on this strong messaging all the way through the funnel, right until you hit the CTA to buy. Interestingly, look at the same page without the persuasion on it. It feels very, okay, apart from there's white space, it doesn't have that pull. And I've explained to you what's going on. You know what's going on, and you're wise to the trick, shall we say, but yet the pull is still very much there. That's how strong and almost insidious this stuff is. It's also why I don't talk about this regularly, because I keep all the good stuff locked away, because there's too many people who are prepared to use this for really bad, evil things. And I'm not prepared to feed that world. So authenticity is obviously critically important if you want to trigger a feeling of the fear of missing out through scarcity design elements, as we've just seen. So here's another example of authenticity. This is Master of Malt. It's a liquor, a whiskey site, basically. I'm not a big whiskey drinker, FYI. But look, this is a £21,000 bottle of booze, right? Now, there's only one left. I'd like to believe that something like that, that's from 1938, there probably aren't that many hanging around it, unopened, etc. The point is, there's a level of authenticity with this particular scarcity principle or this particular design element, because it kind of makes plausible sense. Maybe they do have a cellar full of them and they're just letting it out slowly. At least they appear to be playing the game well. The scarcity principle is matching with the product itself and the context that it's in. Again, here we are back on our old friend eBay. More scarcity going on here. There's 8 available, 68 sold. The 68 sold and the 8 available is doing really well, because it's not only doing the scarcity principle there, you've got the 68 sold. And that is, we talked about liking and social proof. That's what 68 people have bought that. So this seller probably isn't a maverick, or could be, but the bricks are probably good and people have received them. So it seems like, again, an authentic way of representing scarcity and also triggering the herd. Another one with ProSmoke. Again, just on eBay, can you see 41 of these have already been sold? You've got to remember that we as human beings are very much animals. So we are very much herd creatures. And again, more on this later on, but what we tend to do is herd or swarm. And so when you see other members of the herd doing a thing, you yourself are thinking, should I be doing that thing? It's a very, very powerful technique. So let's get back to Cialdini or Cialdini. In fact, Debbie, who is pseudo-Italian, will pick me up on that. I'm pretty sure it's Cialdini. Reciprocity. Here is the British Heart Foundation. What they did is they sent a free poster all about heart health in response for, I think it was answering a few questions. And it was what they're doing is they are triggering some reciprocity, i.e. we've given you this free poster. Look at the call to action at the bottom there. Make a donation to the British Heart Foundation. So what they're saying is we've given you something for free. Can you give us a donation, please? And that's not a bad way of doing that. Okay, it's reciprocal. Yeah. By the way, persuasion and charities is an entirely huge and very emerging UX field. I don't know if that's relevant to any of the product people in the room, but I thought I'd mention that. It really is. Okay, so at the conference, I was going to summarize these, and I've already been over these quite in a little bit of detail. I don't need to give too many examples because I think you're going to be really familiar with social proofs. In fact, we've already seen some examples. Authority, you know, if Elon Musk or I don't know, some world authority on a subject says something, you're likely to be influenced by it. And there's other things we've talked about. I'm going to keep moving for the time being. Now, many of these techniques, of Cialdini's techniques in particular, my humble opinion, my professional opinion, are really tired and worn out and way too much. Okay, I've given you some examples right now that show how those are. Maybe it's just me because I'm a UXer. I've been doing this for a long time, but to me, they're screamingly obvious. They feel like parlor tricks. They don't feel authentic. And if we make our audience cynical and jaded, we have a major problem because none of this stuff works anymore and it loses all its authenticity and therefore doesn't work. So users are becoming much more kind of cynical. So let's fast forward to Perloff. I think it's Robert Perloff. He says we live in a world today, and this was in 2017, so it's not even that old, where people are living in a world where there are much more persuasive messages. Okay, so this is 2017. We're already really deep into the internet and post-truth, misinformation, all of that stuff. So whether you are consciously aware of it or not, you are bombarded by persuasive messages all day. And as a result of that, that makes persuasion much harder. Communication today is much quicker. I mean, whether you're talking about instant messenger stuff, emails, you know, the amount of alerting and notifications that are going on is immense. And so the signal to noise ratio for persuasion is just getting harder and harder and harder. But persuasion is big business because it's worth untold amounts of money. And that's basically what the world is all about, more so today than ever. So persuasion is critically important to most businesses in terms of new business and retaining business. But this is a really huge point. I mentioned it earlier. Modern persuasion is really subtle. There are some cases like I've shown you where it's really thick and kind of ham-fisted, but there are others where it's really subtle, really insidious, sometimes good, sometimes purely evil. Example. Okay, Amazon. I was on Amazon, and you guys were all on Amazon. We all became Prime addicts over the pandemic. Amazon asks you to set up deal notifications, and as you scroll down, right? And it shows you products you've bought and searched for in the past. And so you set up a deal notification. Try to find a deal notification dashboard where all these things are. I've Googled it. There's lots of other people asking exactly the same questions. It's clearly deliberately obscured. What Amazon are doing is it's kind of an asymmetric persuasion. They want you to get hold of deals, like to have the sense of getting these deals, but they don't want you to actually buy the deals, right? Because if they did, they'd put the deals thing front and center, or they'd make it, it wouldn't be hidden away in literally 2 context menus behind a modal somewhere behind a hyperlink. I mean, it really is that crazy. It's like putting it in the basement in the bottom drawer of a filing cabinet. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm going tangential. Persuasion is also much more complex. And in the days that Cialdini wrote his book, Persuasion, we weren't living in the world that we are today. And the context, the other persuasive messages, and the media around it are all changing so rapidly that persuasion is a very fast-moving target these days. So I want to talk about some persuasion principles that you can use. These are the persuasion principles that I tend to live by. Now, this is probably the biggest takeaway of the day. I've already mentioned it. We as humans are very much sheep. Maybe not sheep, but you hear about people that are sheeple. That's because we are herding animals. We just are. Animals herd together for safety, to physically look larger. And because, as I said, there's safety in numbers. And that is almost hard-coded into our DNA. And I say almost, I don't know that for sure, but we are no different to any other herding animal on this planet. Now, you'll hear me talking about triggering the herd. So effectively, when you're triggering the herd, user behavior is affected by the behavior of other users. So what they say and do has a fundamental impact upon what you do. And what that means is it draws you in this tendency towards a group or a social norm, right? That's why you see best practices cropping up and these sorts of things, kind of cultures that arise. And that's because in your head, you're thinking, well, hey, if they're doing it, should I be doing it? Or am I missing out by not doing it? Or, you know what I mean? Or all of that stuff. And I know I've heard myself do it all the time. I'm pretty sure you would have kind of heard yourself do it. It's human nature, but triggering it is super amazingly powerful. So I want you to think about how you can show users what other users are doing, but try to do it in a classy, nice way, not in some of the ham-fisted ways that I've already shown you. So for example, e-commerce, popular products. With my UX designer hat on rather than researcher hat, when I'm working on a e-commerce checkout funnel or a product page, things like merchandising, digital merchandising, is a massive thing that no one really does overtly these days, which is, you know, popular product, most popular, etc. Of course, you do see it in Amazon, you see it in a number of places. It's a really, really powerful way of triggering the herd, because all you're doing is putting a label on that says, look, other people bought this thing. Subtle and nice. You don't have to have tickers or lie or do anything too crazy. Showing busy booking periods. I was at Eurostar. And again, if you can show a busy booking period, it shows when other people are traveling, when it's popular. These are really big things because people, again, for some crazy reason, some people tend to book things when other people are booking them, which I find completely logical, but I'm not the user. Popular options. So you get to upsell and cross-sell by showing popular options that other people have taken. This one's pretty well used today, if I'm honest. And in a checkout, you'll say, oh, okay, Uber Eats. You bought a Happy Meal. Other people bought an apple pie and some chips with that. Would you like to do the same? Remaining stock, again, we've just seen that a lot today. I don't need to go into any details. If you do it right, you can really trigger scarcity. But also item views or watch stuff like you see on eBay, that counter which shows people how many other people are browsing that thing. Now, it's a pretty raw, rough number because just looking at something doesn't really tell you if they were interested or engaged by it or if it was had any value. But still, when other people are looking at stuff, you're thinking, well, do I want to look at it too? I'm going to exhort. Right, hang on. Let me just go back here. Now, there's I'm going to get the name of this wrong. I always do. I think it's the 18th Street phenomenon. But basically, there was somebody, I cannot remember his name, standing in New York in a really busy street. Let's take 6th Avenue or somewhere like that. Or let's take London, okay, for example, standing in the middle of Oxford Street or Oxford Circus. If you were to stand in the middle of Oxford Circus and to look up at the top of one of the buildings there, somebody else, invariably with the massive footfall that you get around there, would stop and see you looking up there. I mean, to exaggerate the effect, you just point, right? Once you get a couple of people standing around looking at this thing, it goes exponential quickly. Lots of people will start looking at what are they all looking at? And before you know it, Oxford Circus has come to a standstill because all these people are standing looking up at the top of the Henny's shop there, right? Which is crazy because the roads are now packed, cars can't move, all of that just because one person was standing there looking upwards. It's a really powerful effect, and that's a very clear example of herding. Right, let's move forwards. Okay, so again, so this particular Kickstarter, 100% funded in 8 hours. What they're saying is this is good stuff. We make good things. Everybody else bought it, and they did it quickly. So this is a good thing because we're validated by the herd. Again, on the right-hand side there, limited number of backers. So they've got the number that you have left, like we saw in eBay, and the number of people who've already bought into it, which are in the hundreds. This here is Littlewoods. I did some work on a few years ago, but this is absolutely classic e-commerce. 5 people have looked at this in the last couple of hours. And this was last purchased at a particular time yesterday. Now, some of these, I don't know if you needed to have it 749. Do you need that level of accuracy? I don't know. You'd have to tell me whether you find that more influential. But 5 people have looked at this in the last couple of hours is kind of interesting, or at least to me. Now, I've got about 8-9 minutes left, so I'm going to try to get through this. This is a very rapid case study. I was at the National Lottery 4, 5, 6 years ago, and I was given this by one of the marketing directors. We'd like to keep you up to date with lottery wins and other lottery related news. And I was told you have to have an SMS capture. And I said to them, look, that's a UX no-no. That's like asking somebody's inside leg measurement or something deeply personal. People don't want to be spammed on their personal device by lottery stuff. And he said, Nick, you have to do it. He said it in harsher terms than that, but Nick, do it. I was like, okay, you're the boss. That's what I would consider a hospital pass. That's a really tough gig because you're asking me to do a really bad, not a bad thing, but a thing that is not best practice. Okay. I think any UXer worth their salt knows that you've got a very, very low acceptance rate when you include a mobile phone number. So what I did was went into my psychological toolbox and added this in. A number of our regular players are signed up to find out if they've won the jackpot. And then there was like a yes, no, do you want that? Basically, that wording contributed to an over 60% sign up. In truth, I think it was closer to 80%, but I couldn't remember exactly. So I just wanted to be a bit more kind of humble and conservative, but it was ridiculous. The marketing director was blown away because when you do marketing spam, you get, I don't know, 10% typically response. I mean, we smashed it, absolutely smashed it so hard that I was surprised. They were surprised. It was ridiculous. Now, can you see what's going on there? Obviously, there's a lot of their regular players are signed up, but that's not the point. The hook here is to find out if they've won the jackpot, to find out if they never have to work again, to find out if they're multimillionaires. Now, you wouldn't want to miss out on that, would you? That's completely FOMO. So what we're saying here is the herd wants to find out if they're rich. Are you any different? It's pretty hard to say no to that, to be fair. Anyway, so that's triggering the herd. And that's not me going directly into any of these books, but that's leveraging the principles within. And that's something that all of you can do. You don't need PhDs in psychology or any of that stuff. Okay. You just need principles, methods, and and Debbie stuff on iteration through Agile. So this is Meyer and Schaefer. In a group of mostly college-educated women, social comparison on Instagram led to short-lasting and harmless envy that was associated with inspiration and improved mood. So herd behavior can do some very interesting, subtle influencing because this is envy. It's kind of a form of FOMO, but it was short-lasting and harmless. So it's kind of like a jealousy, like, or you might even call it inspiration. Okay. So people are looking at this and going, I'm seeing people doing stuff on Instagram. It makes me feel a little bit kind of, ooh, but in the same token, it's kind of a motivator and drives forward. So herd behavior, we are socially comparing ourselves all day and all night. I mean, LinkedIn classic example. This is one of my favorites. And again, this is monster, absolutely huge. The similarity attraction principle by Byrne, and this is 1971. It's as strong today as it was back then. We tend to like people who are like ourselves. Again, that's why we herd. We tend to herd with people that we like, or people who are similar to ourselves. But that is such a powerful mechanism, so powerful. Why? I'm going to take you now into, well, sorry, sorts of things. Mirroring. Okay, you ever seen the classic one? Is two people on a date in a bar. They've never met each other, but if there's a chemistry going on, there's some kind of a click. You'll see mirroring of they'll drink at the same time, or in the old days go for a cigarette at the same time, or yawn at the same time, or scratch their head at the same time. They're mirroring each other, and that's because they like each other and things are developing. So you can mirror the user aesthetically, or through the personality, behaviorally, through needs, lots of other things that happen when similarity attraction is going on. Possibly one of my favorite books, and Prem, maybe in the future I'll come back and talk about this one when I've got time. This is a book I strongly recommend you all read. Front to back, this book changed my life, more so than the design of everyday things and all that garbage. Not garbage, you know, I mean, gubbins. Clifford Reeves and Stanford Nass, or Byron Reeves and Clifford Nass, there we go. Pair of Stanford professors. The media equation is a summary, is a novel style summary of all of their published work, all their journal articles. It's incredibly accessible. It's too easy to read for you not to read it. I personally feel this should be mandatory standard issue to every single graduate in the UK or undergraduate, irrespective of what you do. What this says is, through a long series of many different experiments, that effectively people treat computers like humans. And that's huge. Why? If you think about it, we tend to like people who like ourselves. That was Byrne's similarity attraction principle. And Reeves and NASA, people treat computers like humans. Therefore, and this is my PhD work, and I tested this works. We tend to like computers who are like ourselves, right? We tend to like computers or interactive experiences that exhibit personality or behavioral things that are similar to our own, even in principle. But that's massive, because that means we tend to like digital experiences that are like ourselves. Okay. What does that mean for you, though? Hang on. What does that mean for you? That means we can design experiences in ways that leverage personal differences, individual differences, right? That gives you a whole new world of persuasive techniques to play with or to operationalize. Now, this here, I'm so proud of this because this is Hilton, but this is directly based on my PhD work. My PhD work I do is all about personalizing by skins, and effectively, how can I make a skin exude a personality? So on the left-hand side here, we've got high extroversion. Okay, this is these images have been selected specifically because they capture or are recognized as extroversion. So extroverted people will respond more to the high extroversion advert because it's similarity attraction. I'm high extrovert. That's a high extrovert image. I'm more attracted to that. I'm more persuaded by that. But on the right-hand side, you've got high agreeableness. Now, you may quite rightly, I suppose, to an extent, be thinking, nah, those pictures aren't that different. There's a social group there and all of that. These things are trialed through multiple levels of jury and statistical analysis to ensure a statistically significant difference in those images and the perception of them. So on the face of it, they may not look radically different. Trust me, they are. So people who are highly agreeable will easily or will select the image on the or the promotion on the right. Right, we do need to talk about cognitive dissonance and disequilibrium. These cognitive dissonance was a phrase coined by Festinger in 1957. If you haven't heard of this before, cognitive dissonance is that internal questioning, that doubt, those conflicting beliefs. Classic example is you're about to buy something and check out and you're like, oh, I'm not sure because you've just told me that there's a new color coming in next week and I might want to buy that one. That sort of a thing, right? So you're doing a thing and you're like, oh, wait, I'm not sure. And there's a lot of things going on. Sorry, hang on. Yeah. Now, what causes cognitive dissonance typically? I hope you all know Daniel Kahneman. This system 1 versus system 2 is, again, very classic. System 1 is all that kind of rapid, fast, instinctive kind of thinking, error prone stuff that you do day to day. On the right hand side is that more thoughtful, considered, complex decision making or slow considered stuff on the right hand side. Now, if you're buying something instinctively, dopamine is flowing and you're going to go through checkout, and then suddenly you get some kind of fact that is much more system 2, you end up with system 1 and system 2 bouncing off of each other, and voila, you get dissonance. So how do you avoid cognitive dissonance or disequilibrium? There are differences between the two, but for right now, just assume they're broadly similar. You need to review all of your key user journeys individually, as a team, and in the lab with real users. Why? Because you need to identify any conflicting elements and messaging. It's often messaging, but it can be something as subtle as an image where it throws people out. And the way to do that is through lots and lots of iterative testing. Check your service design. Ensure the entire journey experience meets your expectations. And when I say entire journey, I'm talking about things like fulfillment. Because if you're not going through the line and your online is great and your offline is crap, you're going to have trouble. Again, marketing directors hate me, but hey, c'est la vie. Tread carefully. Marketing directors love putting elements into the experience that directly cause dissonance. Kind of like that example I showed you earlier with the National Lottery. They just love telling me to do stuff that isn't great UX. So be very careful. And the way to diffuse that is test it and show them the evidence, obviously. And also make sure you store the insights so you don't reintroduce them. That's critically important because I can't tell you how many gigs I've been at where people keep making the same mistakes because they're not learning from what they've already learned. Not relevant. So I'm just going through this because it's literally 1841 and I'm a minute over. Interesting. When going online shopping, people with a limited time looked at a greater number of products from popular brands and spent more time looking at them than items with from less popular brands, right? So if people are limited, it's familiarity that comes into play here, right? It's that popular herd validated brand, should we say, that if everyone else is doing it, I'm going to spend that extra bit of time that I've got just double checking the herd rather than going with my own opinion because I don't have the time or the risk. It's safety in numbers, safety with the herd. So there's persuasive design process, and this should lead me beautifully into Debbie's talk right now. Influencing behavior successfully is 100% a process. Anyone that tells you it's a book or a thing that you do is just wrong. You have an influence cycle. Typically, you start off with the principles that I've given you, come up with a hypothesis, design something, test it, store the output in your personae, then brief the rest of your team or socialize the outputs. Or sorry, in 7 here, share, show and tell, demo, implement a review, and then go back around that cycle again, right? Until you get to a place of optimal influence. Now, Agile is the best way of doing that. I call it science because Agile is effectively a scientific methodology. So finally, top tips. Number 1, don't overdo the persuasion. Okay, people are cynical, and if you overdo it, there is a tipping point. If you turn it up too much, it'll go wrong really fast and everything can fall apart. Conversion, other metrics will go out of the window. You won't like it. Change one thing at one time because you want to be able to attribute change. So if you have a cause and effect relationship, hello science. If you change 5 things at one time, you don't know what caused the change. Unless you're doing MVT, that's another thing. Be patient and try new things. This isn't stuff that happens overnight. You need to work at this, but it is very, very worthwhile. Subtle can mean huge returns. As you'll see with junior designers, their designs are really bold and blatant and sometimes mostly not very nice. And as you become more experienced, you realize that subtle is the way to go. Same is true within persuasion. Record insight in your personae or personas. As I've stated, there's no point forgetting stuff you've already learned, and this is all about needs and effect. And if you can trigger those and understand them, make sure you're socializing so that other people can learn the benefits from that. And share it, share it, share it. Share it internally with your organization, share it with me, share it with us, share it on LinkedIn, get it out there. That's it. Thanks very much for your time. You can find me on LinkedIn. Usually I'm in the middle of a crazy gig, so I just haven't got that much time to spend on LinkedIn or social networks, but that's where I do tend to live. If you need to get hold of me, please do get me there. Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear them.
Okay, thank you very much, Nick. That was great. Can everyone, if everyone's okay, we can come onto camera, unmute yourselves. Look, switch one. And just to give Nick a quick round of applause for a great talk there.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. I hope that answered some of your persuasive questions, or at least it motivates you to either read Kahneman's book, or you should read Kahneman and Cialdini anyway. But being the biased person I am, read the media equation. It's so great. It'll inspire you.